Can. There we go.
It's fall beer
Welcome
now.
back. Yeah, that's true. I forgot. Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of RotoBaller. My co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. Chris Buescher in Victory Lane 2 weeks in a row. Once again, the second season in a row that the Richmond winner has gone on to win Michigan the next week, because they're such similar tracks. But Chris Buescher held off a late, hard-charging Martin Truex Jr. who swept the first two stages, who had an incredibly fast auto owners Toyota, which if you've listened to the show for very long, you know my theory with the auto owners paint scheme and Martin Truex Jr. But Truex, our points leader, gets a second place finish. Denny Hamlin bounces back from stalling on pit road, getting the ultimate Jordan jinx. As soon as I live bet him, he stalled on pit road, bounces back for a third place finish. Brad Keselowski, who's also having strong runs lately, in addition to Chris Buescher, his teammate, finishes fourth. Kyle Larson with a quiet top five is what I'll say. Suarez, Chastain, Harvick, Blaney, and Eric Jones rounding out the top 10. Eric Jones has now finished 11th or better in 5 of the last 7 races. Chris Buescher in Victory Lane. Nick, Sunday and Monday race, I thought it was a very good race. There was a lot of strategy. Michigan was repaved not too long ago, and now we saw virtually no tire fall off in practice. Same thing during the race. All of a sudden it came down to strategy and track position. What did you think of the race, though? Because 86% right now in Jeff Gluck's poll said that was a good race. And you know what? I'm going to say right now, if Martin Truex Jr. won that race, which I think he should have, I don't think it'd be 86%. I think it'd be in the low 70s. Because I think the only reason that a lot of people like this race is because Chris Buescher won, and they love to see the underdog win. By the way, before I let you speak, Chris Buescher now has more wins over the last 36 races than Ross Chastain. He actually has 3 times as many wins over the last 36 races as Ross Chastain.
And more
Chris
career
Buescher,
wins.
And more career wins by double.
One.
Is it? Chastain has 3 wins?
Ross has 3.
Oh,
yeah,
you're right.
2 last year, 1 this year. And Buescher has 4.
Yeah. And then someone said Buescher's Pocono win doesn't count, and I'm like, but we're going to talk about or they also said his Bristol win doesn't count because it was a wreck fest. I'm like, we're not going to talk about Chastain's Talladega win?
Talladega win? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, Chris Buescher, Victory
all
Lane.
wins count, technically.
Yeah. Yeah, technically, exactly. But yeah, what did you think of that race?
Yeah, it was a good race. I wouldn't say it was one of the best races of the year. It was really hard to pass, especially for the lead, as you saw at the end there. And remember, you allude to the fact that, had Truex won, it may have been 70%, possibly because there was that race a couple years ago, I think it was Kansas or something, Joey Logano held off Harvick for like 25, 30 laps because the clean air just mattered so much, and everybody hated that. And for some reason, they liked this Michigan one. So maybe it has to do with who wins. But I still thought overall it was a good race. You could definitely pass through the field. It was hard to pass, but you could pass. And I liked that. It was just darn near impossible to pass for the lead. Truex clearly had the faster car than Buescher. He just was unable to pass. And, Truex was able to pass for the lead earlier, coming through the field when he made that pit stop to win the stage, which was amazing. So certainly it was possible to pass for the lead, but that was, Truex being much better than the lead cars there because it wasn't Buescher in the lead at the time. I forget who it was, but, I think it was like Daniel Suarez or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah,
I forget who.
It was Suarez.
But when you're passing another car that's much closer to you in speed for the lead, it's much harder, and it wasn't able to get done. Truex almost lost it. He almost got loose and wrecked, and that would have created a hell of a crazy ending. I went 0 on my bets. Here's the funny thing. I think it was something like between all my bets over the week and weekend, I think it was around 15. But my win expectation for my bets was only 1.5 wins. And I won 1 bet. I won Chris Buescher to win his group. So, I came in under expectation. Wasn't a great week for me betting-wise, but I bet a lot of long shots, and they all crashed out. William Byron crashed out 11-1. Chase Elliott popped a tire 16-1. They were looking really good. Alex Bowman looked really good. Crashed out, not his fault, right? Like Gilliland had something happen in front of him. He got squeezed in the wall. Bowman had to try to avoid it, and somebody got pushed up into Bowman. It was just Christopher Bell. I had him for top Toyota, I think, at one point or something, 5-1, and then I had, it was just a lot of bad luck. It didn't work out. And then a couple of my long shot plays just were so much better on Sunday than Monday. Like LaJoie and Allmendinger looked good on Sunday. They both looked like garbage on Monday. I don't know what happened. They just didn't keep up with, the rain, of course, washes all the rubber off the track. You get a green track, and they never seem to be able to adjust correctly for day 2 of that race. But even then, I still enjoyed the race, losing my bets. Probably because I was coming down off the Kyle Kirkwood win high. Second win of the year for Kyle Kirkwood, my guy. I had him 10-1 to win. I know you had him 8-1 to win. I had him top Honda. I had winning Team Andretti. I had winning, car number 20-29, which is basically Andretti plus a couple other cars. So just absolutely cleaned up on Kyle Kirkwood. So, I was in a great mood anyway, even on Monday morning, just still reveling in that.
Yeah. Once again, like I've said before, I really like live betting. So when Buescher was got ahead of Truex, I think it was on the final pit stops where it was still going to go green, or if it went green, Buescher still had the lead. He was at plus 550 or something live, and I'm like, I think Truex definitely has the better car. Like it's apparent that Truex has the better car, but plus 550 for the leader at Michigan, there's no way I'm not hitting it. So I ended up hitting that. I'm a little irritated myself because if you remember back to Pocono, my top 10 guys at intermediates this year have always been Stenhouse and Eric Jones because they're constantly in that plus 600, plus 700 range. I was hitting Stenhouse, and I think you did too this past weekend, but I didn't bet Jones, who, like I said, came home 10th. I don't know what I did there.
I actually was planning on betting both Stenhouse and Jones, and then I decided, no, I'm just going to stick with LaJoie, Allmendinger, and Haley. I was planning on betting both Stenhouse and Jones and ended up never betting either.
Yeah. It was, I don't know what was going on there. But yeah, like you said, Chase Elliott wrecked, Alex Bowman wrecked, and there was talk last week that maybe Chase Elliott could potentially point his way in. McDowell had the race that he needed for Elliott to potentially point his way in. Elliott now has to win. He is 55 points below the cut line. Alex Bowman is 44. They're pretty much in must-win situations to get into these playoffs. But here's a question for you. We know that Chase Elliott can win Watkins Glen. I don't know if he's going to have the speed to win Indy Road Course. I don't think he's shown that speed at that track yet. And Daytona, we know he's good at Daytona. I believe Chase Elliott is available at 25-1 to win the championship this year. Is it a good time to make a future bet on Chase Elliott to win this championship because of the position he's in right now? Because if he goes out and wins Watkins Glen, that's going right back down to 10-1.
No.
No. Still no?
Look how bad Hendrick has been recently. Not just Chase Elliott. Hendrick as a whole has fallen off. We talked about that shift. And, Kyle Larson has been very good, but Byron has fallen off. Bowman hasn't done jack since he came back. And Elliott hasn't done jack since he came back. He had a string there of a few top fives, but they were all much more based off of strategy and avoiding issues than actually being a top 5 car. He was not a top 5 car in any of those races. So, I think they're just not good enough. And there's other teams that are just teams and drivers that are just better right now. Plus, you're still hoping he gets in, right? He's only what? Let's be generous here and say he's 7-1 to win this weekend at the Indy Road Course. So that's 12.5% chance of winning. Let's give him a 15% chance of winning at Glen, which I think is ridiculous. But let's give him a 15% chance of winning there. And then Daytona's such a crapshoot. He's maybe at best a 7% chance of winning that. So we're looking at, I'm going to do the math here real quick, 0.93 times 0.85 times 0.875. He is a 69% chance of not winning his way in.
What the fuck are the chances of that?
I literally just made up some numbers, but that's being generous, right? Like, I'm taking the book odds on Indy Road Course, which I think are stupidly wrong, and I'm being even more generous on Glen, which I think is wrong, and I'm being pretty generous on Daytona, which I think is wrong, right? So we're being generous that he has a 69% chance of not making the playoffs, which means a 31% chance of making the playoffs. So right there, if he has a 31% chance of making the playoffs, he's already, let's do the math there, 1 over 0.31, and I just accidentally cleared the number. That would already be like plus 225-ish fair value. That's just to make the playoffs, right? Now you have to win the damn thing. And without making the playoffs, he was at best, 5, 6, 7 to 1 during the year. So, like, let's say 1 in 6. So 1 in 6 is 16% times 0.31. We're looking at 5.2% as very generous odds for Chase Elliott, which would be 18.5 to 1. Like, trying to be very generous, 18.5 to 1. So no.
So still not worth the 25 to 1.
No, because we're being extremely generous. Like, we're taking the book odds, and we know the book has a bunch of theoretical hold, right? So we are absolutely being super generous here to Chase Elliott. That 18.5 to 1 would be fair odds.
Okay. So I'm with you on, we have not seen race-winning speed out of Chase Elliott this year. Here's the facts of the matter. Most laps led in non-super speedway races this year. He led 7 at Sonoma. That's his highest of the season. When you take out Talladega, he led 18 at Talladega.
And that was strategy at Sonoma.
Yeah, so he led 18 at Talladega. That's his highest. We're not going to count that. 7 at Sonoma, 6 at Charlotte, 5 at Kansas, 1 lap led at Nashville, and 1 lap led at California. Or at Auto Club. That is the only laps that Chase Elliott has led this entire season.
That sounds like all strategy lap leads too. I don't. How many times did he actually take the lead on speed? It might be none.
Yeah, if anything, maybe at Kansas, but I don't think so because I think Byron is better than him in that race. So, yeah, that is wild. But anytime you get a previous champion on an organization that has done very well this season and is always a championship contender, and you have them at 25 to 1 like that, I think it's worth I don't think it's worth betting. I think it's worth a discussion. But that brings up the question, you said that Hendrick is not good right now, comparatively speaking to where they were earlier in the year. Do you think they can bounce back come playoff time?
They can, but they don't need to bounce back come playoff time. They need to be bounced back now because they're trying to get 2 of their cars into the playoffs. Yeah. So whether they can or not, they are absolutely clearly trying like hell, and it's not working. Not like last year where we thought Byron was testing that kind of stuff, whatever. Those cars that need to get in are bad right now. Bad relative to what we would, say is good, is bad for Hendrick Motorsports. Not like, obviously, like Legacy Motorsports, Legacy Motor Club bad or anything like that, but just bad for what they expect.
Yeah, so when, I said Kyle Larson had a pretty quiet 5th place finish, like, that's not the kind of race you expect out of Kyle Larson at Michigan. Like, he was not... He was good, but he wasn't great. So if Larson, someone like Larson is just good, not great at a track like Michigan, you can tell that they're off. And I mean, we heard it 2 weeks ago on the radios. Like, one of the crew chiefs literally said, we're all just dog shit, and we don't know why. You don't want an organization saying that as we're gearing up for the last 3 weeks before the playoffs. Like, this RFK right now is where you want to be because RFK suddenly has a ton of speed, as does Joe Gibbs Racing.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at data since 2012, and I have a rolling equipment rating for each team, right? And right now, Hendrick Motorsports is pretty much near their bottom. They are, more than bottom 10% performance for that team in terms of their current rating. If I look at the overall distribution of their equipment rating right now they're at their bottom 10%, not bottom 10% of NASCAR. Just in the history of Hendrick since 2012, they are a bottom 10% of Hendrick history right now in terms of their rolling equipment rating.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm making a note
Not
to
good.
clip that because that's a nice little soundbite there. But it tells you just how they're not performing right now, and it's to go from that level of dominance to fall off that much is just it's something. Another guy that shot himself in the foot once again, Tyler Reddick. Man, this is why. Okay, I have a very specific reason why I never bet Tyler Reddick and I never play him in DFS because this shit happens so often. So Reddick takes the lead from Buescher. Him and Buescher are on the strategy to be way ahead of Truex and Hamlin in the final run. They can just draft the entire way and then battle it out between them because Truex wasn't going to catch him by himself. Reddick comes out in the lead after the final pit stop. Boom, his pit crew forgot to get the tire on tight again. I think this is like the fifth time this has happened this year. And then they showed the replay, and like you heard the radio from Reddick. He's basically like, you didn't even fucking look at it. Like you could hear how pissed off he was, and understandably so. He had a great car all day. He's had great cars this year, but again, it's not obviously not all Tyler Reddick's fault. But like I said, this is why I don't bet on the guy because this shit happens to him all the time, and it's weird. This is why when people say that he's a playoff or he's a championship contender, I'm like, no, he's not. That team just does not execute. You know, we see the same issues, not as many, but we see the same issues with Bubba Wallace, his teammate.
Absolutely, yeah. And we used to see similar with Kyle Larson. He would go out and dominate a race and then just fall apart when he was with the Ganassi days, right? Like, it doesn't happen as much now. But earlier in his career, we saw the same thing with Larson. I loved fading Larson in DFS, especially if he was Chuck, just because you knew everybody was going to be on him for all that lap-led potential, all the dominator potential, and then he'd inevitably throw it away. That's how I won at least one, I think maybe two of my qualifiers of the three that I got over the years for DFS back from 2015 and 2018 was just fading Larson in qualifying, contests because only the top one or two or whatever few, depending on the size of the contest, would actually get a seat to the main event. And Larson would be 85% owned in those contests. And I'm like, he's got at least a 30% chance of doing something stupid, right? So
yeah.
It's the same thing, whether it's him or his team or anything like that, Reddick or back then Larson, they have issues, and that's why he's sitting 13th in points, right? I mean, look at this. If we look at Tyler Reddick over the last 9 races, he has 6 finishes of 27th or worse. 6 out of the last 9. Not nice.
Not nice. No. But that's just it is. It reminds you a lot of Kyle Larson. There's so much talent there. It's boom or bust, though. And, I feel like, we always said with Larson when he was with Ganassi, we said if he gets an elite ride, he's gonna come around and start doing it. I feel like Reddick has an elite ride, and he's still not doing it. Now, obviously, first year with 2311, but you got to think it's going to hopefully click with them like it did Larson. But Larson, he got into Hendrick, and right off the bat, he was very good.
Yeah.
But as you were talking about playoff standings, we'll get into that now. Truex firmly ahead in the point standings. It's going to take a miracle for him not to win the regular season championship. By the way, he's coming back next year, made the decision, said, hey, these cars are way too fast. I'm coming back next year, which I didn't think there was any chance that he wasn't going to. One guy that is probably not coming back this season, at least according to every reporter except for Jim Utter, is Noah Gragson, who got suspended last weekend at Michigan for liking a controversial picture on Instagram. He was having an absolutely garbage season anyway. So, if anything, I think this is a sigh of relief from Legacy Motor Club that this happened because now they have no reason to bring him back next year when they move to Toyota. Like, there's no way Toyota is going to let that happen. Legacy Motor Club, now they can get someone in there to test. Josh Berry ran there at Michigan. I think he ended up wrecking. But Rockefeller is going to be running the 2 road courses. No timeline or no announcement yet on who's going to be running that car afterwards. But I don't expect to see Noah Gragson race another Cup race this season. We're obviously not going to get into the talk of whether the liking of the image was appropriate or not, but had to touch on that really quick. Like I said, though,
so funny enough, I don't actually like really have a whine about it, but I do think I was gonna whine about people being like, why do people dig through somebody's history to find this? And I'm like, it's one thing if, he was 15, 18, something like that, and happened years ago. It happened within the last 3 months while I was employed by Legacy Motor Club. So that was my, like, gripe about that is, okay, maybe somebody dug up something from 2 or 3 months ago, but it happened while he was employed with Legacy Motor Club. So that is a big deal, especially when you got corporate sponsors that don't want to see that. It's not like somebody dug up something from when he was 15 and did something stupid when he was younger, right? It was recent, very recent.
Yeah, he's representing brands and he's representing an organization that, it's not that hard not to like a picture, but. Still, though, point standings haven't changed, but what has changed is Ty Gibbs is now above the cut line, which is going to make, we didn't get a new winner, so now there's 4 spots left. Harvick can technically not make it in on points, but he's 180 above the cut line. Keselowski's 168 above the cut line. We're going to get 3 winners. If we get 3 new winners these last 3 races of the regular season, then one of those 2 will be out. Chances of that happening, I'm going to say, aren't very high. But as we talked about last week, Michael McDowell is a true contender at road courses and is in win now mode. Ty Gibbs, I don't know if we've seen him contend for an actual win at these road courses, but he's good at road course racing. Daniel Suarez has won at a road course, and remember when SVG won the Chicago street course this race, they announced afterwards that, hey, this was the car that Suarez drove at Sonoma last year that was so dominant. Now there's this whole aspect of, does Suarez get that car this weekend at Indy or at Watkins Glen next week, which could get him in. AJ Allmendinger is a previous winner at Indy Road Course. He's 24 points below the cut line. Austin Cindric, good road course racer. Chase Elliott, one of the best road course racers in the Cup Series. This is shaping up to be an epic battle, like, again, but it almost got even tighter. The point standings and everything going on after last week. Bubba Wallace, 58 above. He's not a great road course racer, but for some reason he's finished well here at Indy Road Course. I feel like we should make predictions on who's going to get in, but it's probably our thoughts are probably going to change each week. Yeah,
they'll change each week, and you know what else would be even crazier, right? So Bubba's firmly up there in 14th in points, 15th in the playoff standings because Stenhouse has a win, who's 15th in points there. He's firmly up there. But what would be crazier is if somebody outside wins, then all of a sudden Bubba's the cut line. That makes it less crazy, I should say. Then all of a sudden Bubba's the cut line. So it actually makes it less crazy if we get a new winner at Daytona or Indy Road Course or the Glen. So I'm actually rooting for no new winner until Daytona, because then Daytona, anything can happen. If we get a new winner, that's crazy. If we have a points battle, that's crazy, right? So please, these next 2 races, don't let somebody outside the top 16 in points win. Or
that's
don't even let Ty Gibbs win. Yeah.
Interesting. See,
right? Because let's say I'm just gonna make up something. It doesn't matter who. Let's say Eric Jones wins Indy Road Course, right? Then he's in, and Ty Gibbs, who's 16th in points, is out. So the cut line moves up to Bubba Wallace, but Bubba Wallace is 55 points ahead of Ty Gibbs, right? Ty Gibbs is 55 points ahead of Chase Elliott. We're saying Chase Elliott's out unless he wins.
Mm-hmm.
So it would not be good for the chaos if somebody outside the playoffs looking in wins. So I want to get to Daytona with no winners outside the top 16 in points.
I get that. I definitely do. You know what I'm rooting for, though?
What?
The exact opposite. I want 3 different winners over these next 3 races. 3 new winners over these next 3 races, and I want Harvick or Keselowski to miss out. That's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for Allmendinger to win Indy Road Course, Elliott to win Watkins Glen, and then Bubba Wallace to win Daytona. That would be.
Do we have enough? We have Harvick, Keselowski.
Bubba and Ty Gibbs.
Bubba and Ty Gibbs. So one of Harvick or Keselowski would miss out, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which right now there's 12 points separating them.
I guess the best way for that to happen would be Dinger winning one of the next two. Mm-hmm. Bowman or Elliott winning one of the next two, and then anybody winning Daytona.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Cindric, I guess, with
which
the road
isn't,
courses.
Yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility because of how these road courses is. By the way, I think Watkins Glen, I don't care. Whatever Chase Elliott opens at, I'm betting him next weekend to win Watkins Glen. Like, that's how I am.
I don't know.
Putting my tinfoil hat on. No, man. No. Conspiracy theory here.
No. Right? Like, so this reminds me this week, and I guess we're going to get into Indy Road Course talk because I know people are betting Chase Elliott like crazy. I've seen it with many people on various media. And if you just look at the number, Chase Elliott's gone down from 8 or 8.5 at books to 7 or 7.5 at books. So He's taken on a ton of money. This is remember last year when Kyle Larson won Auto Club and everybody was like, well, he's going to win Vegas too or whatever. And he opened at 6-1 at some books and 550 at others. And everybody was betting him. I'm like, it's the same sucker bet that we have this weekend with Chase Elliott. To me, I think it's a sucker bet because they see Chase Elliott at 8 and they have to bet it. And that's wrong. Remember, Hendrick is in the bottom 10% of their current equipment rating. They are bad. Chase Elliott has been bad this year at the two road courses. Bad. He was a 10th place car in green flag speed at Sonoma, but he had the track position. If you track position flags adjust it, he was 11th or 12th place car at Sonoma. He was terrible at Chicago Street Course. He and Justin Haley started in the back, and he was on the Haley strategy. They literally were basically on the same strategy the whole race, and he finished behind Justin Haley. Well, Justin Haley's 100-1 this weekend. So, okay, maybe Justin Haley's too long in 101, but that probably means Chase Elliott's a little too short at 8-1 or whatever. He was not in the top 15, and it's hard to do flags for Chicago Street Course because of all the weirdness, but he was not a top 10, 12 car at Chicago Street Course. He got that track position by strategy, the same way Justin Haley did, and then he couldn't pass Justin freaking Haley. He could not pass Justin Haley. So, that says, if we look at like top 15%, Chase Elliott was 15th in top 15%, exact same as Justin Haley at Chicago Street Course. And now we're talking Hendrick Motorsports is at the bottom of their performance rating. Hendrick Motorsports this year has only had 9.5% of the road course fastest laps in the three races. That's split among four drivers, right? So that's 2 and change per driver, 2.5 per driver almost. That is not an 8-1 deal. Hendrick Motorsport, Chase Elliott has not won a road course in the next gen car. He's 0-for. And it just, like, I can throw out so many more stats about Indy Road Course. Both of the Indy Road Course races, he has not been a top 3 or so car. He did lead some laps in the first one, the crazy exploding curb year, but last year he led no laps. Chase Elliott, it's not my whine about it, but I guess it is because I don't have one. But I don't understand the Chase Elliott love, which rolls into Watkins Glen. I can't get behind him at any price, right? Because HMS is down. Look at how bad Chase Elliott's been recently, right? I mean, he's not been good since he's come back from his injury. Alex Bowman has not been good. William Byron has not been good. He has a win there, but since Sonoma, he has only 2 finishes inside the top 10. Kyle Larson's been consistent, but he hasn't been winning and not leading laps, not dominating races. Hendrick Motorsports is down, and Chase Elliott has not been as good at road courses in the next-gen car. He specifically has said that Hendrick Motorsports found an advantage in the Gen 6 car, and that's part of why he was absolutely crushing these road courses. And then Larson. But then last year, he and Larson all of a sudden weren't crushing road courses. Who was? Tyler Reddick. So, just one of those things. I just had to get it out of me. the blindly bet Chase Elliott because he's 8-1 stuff is crazy. Jim Sonis, Number Fire, FanDuel, his model has Chase Elliott like 8.6%. My most generous model has Chase Elliott 8.8%, which is nowhere near 8-1. They're both in the 10 plus range. So there's my Chase Elliott rant. So that interrupted your Watkins Glen Chase Elliott moment.
Yeah. No, I'm not on him for Indy Road Course. He's not good at these specific types of road courses. But the reason that I want to be on him at Watkins Glen is because I think NASCAR is scripted, and I think that's how he's going to get in the playoffs. And I'm just saying that now. But you brought up a very good point because, you remember back in 2011, 2020, Chase Elliott, he won 6 of 8 road course races. And he finished first or second in like 7 or 8 of 9. Like, just ridiculous numbers. As you said, he has not won in this car. He has not won in the last 11 road course races. He has not won in 11 road course races. So, yeah, I'm not on him this weekend. I saw the number and I was kind of like, opening at 8. I'm like, it's a little weird to see it at road courses, but I was more surprised Truex opened at 8. You know
what's really telling for me? Yeah, and I agree with you with Truex opening at 8. Truex got immediately bet down to 3.5. Chase Elliott, so at Westgate Superbook, where all the sharp money comes in right away, right? Truex opened at 8, got bet down to 3.5. Reddick opened at 7, got bet down to 5. But Chase Elliott opened at 7 and drifted to 8 because he wasn't taking the sharp money. So the books adjusted by lengthening him because they weren't taking money on him. Now the public money comes flooding in and pushes him back down to 7. So just one of those things where I would love to be wrong for all of you that bet Chase Elliott, and then you can whine about me. I would love that. I hope it happens for all of you because my outright card right now is 0. So I don't care who wins at this point. I haven't bet a single outright. I'd love for all of you to win Chase Elliott and point and laugh at me, but it's just not what the data says right now.
You mentioned Superbook. It's been interesting how much these odds have shifted. Like we said, Truex opened at 8. He got bet down to plus 350. He's now back to plus 450. Reddick went down to plus 500. He's now plus 600. So, and Elliott's now 9-1. So, it's, I always think it's interesting. Like, SVG opened at, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I think I'm going to screw it up, even though I'm pretty sure I know how to pronounce it. But he opened at 20-1. He's down to 12. And I don't know. That's another thing about this. I know we're getting into Indy Road Course here, but there's a lot of new people in this race too. So we have the aspect of Indy race always being a shit show. We're 2 for 2 at this race being a shit show. And now we have like 6 guys that I don't think have made a single NASCAR Cup Series start racing in this race.
Yep.
This could get stupid, and that's why I have no interest in betting this race, and we talked about this last week. I have no interest in betting this race except for some long shots, and you and I have already gotten on some long shots, which we'll get to in a little bit. But before we get to that, do you have anything else for the standings before I get into my whine about it, since you've already done your whine about it? But if you have something else, you can, of course, add.
No, I don't really have anything else in the standings. I'm just kind of looking here. William Byron, remember, he had that 60-point penalty, and he would have been leading, blah, 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 without the 60-point penalty. Well, no more. Martin Truex Jr. is the non-points penalty leader. So, that's pretty big to show how far they've come to overtake Hendrick Motorsports, because Byron was up by more than a race at one point. He was up by almost 2 races, I think, at one point in the year if we remove the penalty. So, just goes to show the whole Hendrick absolutely falling off a cliff in the equipment rating that I have. So,
did Larson also have that penalty? Am I right in thinking that?
No, Larson did not. It was the 48 and the 24.
Okay.
But or the 24th. It was the the 48 and the 24.
Okay.
And then the 5 or the 9 or whatever, I think. Sorry, not the 5. The 9 got I think it was a team penalty, but it didn't apply to Chase Elliott, the driver, because he was injured at the time.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, because I just wanted to point out that Kyle Larson jumped Ross Chastain in the point standings. Mr. Midseason champion Ross Chastain is now 7th in the point standings this year, about to get overtaken by winless Brad Keselowski.
Yeah.
So just pointing that out there. I'm back on my hate Ross Chastain train. But yeah, like I said, you got into whine about it already. If you don't have anything else, I can just do it. I didn't know if you had another one planned and you still wanted to.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
That ended up being an impromptu whine about it.
Yeah. Yeah. A little playoff cut line plus impromptu whine about it. But I'm like you. I really didn't have anything. It took me quite a bit to come up with something. And the only thing I got for whine about it this week, presented by Luvabella Winery, I have the Passion strawberry lemonade again, which I need to pour some real quick. This is weird because, if you listened last week, I didn't have anything to complain about last week either, and I don't have anything to complain about this week, Major. This is odd for me. That means I think that means I'm about to go on like a big rant. Like we're gonna hit a certain like month straight of just me shit talking.
Oh god, I agree.
But
I agree. There's gonna be some absolute ridiculousness coming up at some point. I just don't know what or when.
So here's my wine about it from Michigan. God, this wine's so good. Strawberry lemonade, Passion strawberry lemonade. Very good. Sorry, that probably you can't even tell that in the camera. How in the actual fuck did they not take Truex's car to R&D from Michigan? R&D is not a random draw of cars. They pick what cars go to R&D. That car was fucking illegal. I don't care what anybody says. You watch that thing on track.
Said so, yeah.
That thing is fucking. That thing was illegal. They were so fast. Like it. Just watching the end of stage 2, and I understand that the cars that he passed were on worse tires and blah 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 blah. I don't care. That car was stupid. Even when the end of the race, when he couldn't get by Buescher, if you remember, when Buescher had like a half second lead or a full second lead, it took half a lap, and Truex was already on his bumper, and then he just couldn't make the pass. Like that car was illegal, and I don't understand. Like I get there's always people that say, oh, they just let certain teams cheat. If that's true, 100%, that's why Martin Truex Jr. did not get picked for R&D, because that car, there's no way that thing was legal. Absolutely no way. It was way too fast.
Yeah,
way too fast.
It was. Everybody on Twitter was saying it. My only two things about that: one, why would they be just letting him get away with it? Why? Like, what is the purpose of NASCAR letting him get away with that?
I don't think that they're doing that. I'm just saying, like, the people that think that, it just adds fuel to their fire, because there's no reason that car shouldn't have went to R&D.
I agree with that. Totally agree with that. But I think at least from NASCAR's perspective, why would they be letting Truex get away with it? I don't think it makes much sense, because I thought they let Chase Elliott get away with everything, but then they penalized the shit out of Hendrick Motorsports this year, etc. They suspended Chase Elliott for a race if they were going to let the most popular driver get away with stuff. If NASCAR is so rigged, Dale Earnhardt Jr. would have a championship,
right?
Or that kind of thing. So, it's one of those things. But then also, Chris Buescher held off Martin Truex Jr. If Truex's car was illegal, was Chris Buescher's car illegal?
True. I have to give Chris Buescher a shout out, because how he held off Truex when Truex was charging there at the end, that was he drove as perfectly as he could, and that's why he got that win. That was impressive driving by Chris Buescher.
Chris Buescher did not put a wheel wrong there on that final stint.
And he even had to deal with Austin Hill. If you remember, he got on the radio and he's like, "Is Hill on
twice?
Is 62
twice?
Is 60? Yeah, is 62 on Joe Gibbs' payroll?" Because he was, another thing I saw was maybe Michael McDowell got in Truex's way a little bit.
I didn't see
it.
I didn't see that at all.
Truex was complaining about on the radio. He complains about a lot on the radio. Mm-hmm. One thing I want to say, though, to disprove these people that have the mindset of Truex's car didn't get picked to go to R&D because they're cheating and NASCAR's let them, think about the last 5 years, 10 years. If you could name one driver that has consistently, multiple times a year, that the team has just fucking nailed the setup and he has gone on to be stupid fast the entire race and absolutely dominate, what driver comes to mind?
It's Martin Truex Jr.
Martin Truex Jr. It happens multiple times a year. We could say the same about Kyle Larson. Usually, though, they're a second half of the race team. You know, they don't have that speed till the second half of the race. Truex, when they hit it, I remember. So I used to go to the Michigan race quite often before they moved weekends. And I remember I was going down pit road. I was talking to some of the pit guys of various teams, and I'd always ask them, you know, who's the guy to beat this week? Who's the guy to beat this week? And when Truex was fast there, they'd always say Truex. You can always tell because they unload and they don't touch a damn thing on that car. Like, that's how just on they are. And that's always stuck with me because, like I said, he is the only driver in the garage that I know when they are on for a weekend, they are fucking on. And that's exactly what happened at Michigan. But I still think that car might have been illegal because it was so damn fast.
Yeah, I mean, that car was ridiculous. But, you know, he did technically get 4 fresh tires or whatever it was on that stop. And he passed through the field, but it wasn't the elite cars that he was passing. Maybe other than Bubba. It wasn't the elite cars that he was passing. So, and Bubba was in dirtier air as well. So, you know, it was definitely crazy. But it wasn't maybe as crazy as it seemed. Like, passing Daniel Suarez, like I said, is not...
Yeah.
Daniel Suarez was whatever he was in speed in that race. I didn't look it up because it wasn't that great.
Here's the thing too. You remember I live bet Hamlin. Jordan Jinx happened. He stalled on pit road. Mm-hmm. These books. You remember last week at Richmond? They were sharp. They didn't really let us. Well, they let Buescher out there and they let Almirola out there pretty long. But they immediately put Hamlin to 35-1. Which I immediately bet. Like I just kept dumping money on Hamlin because I knew Truex had the best car, but I knew Hamlin had the second best car.
Yep.
Hamlin did the exact same thing as Truex. That flew up through the field. He just didn't do it quite as fast, but that car was almost as fast as Truex's. And if there would have been a late restart and a little bit of bump between Buescher and Truex, Hamlin would have won that race. You know, he had a great car too, and he was able to. You know, I think when he went back and his car stalled, and he had to go to the back of the field. I think he was back up in the top 15 within 5 laps, if I remember right. Like he was flying through there just like Truex was. So, but Truex's car all the Toyotas were like Christopher Bell. Even with all that damage, he had a fast race car. So
absolutely, and I mean it helped. He didn't have to fuel save during that one stint, like you tweeted about. But at the same time, even when at the end nobody was fuel saving, he was flying through the field. So the nice thing is my flags is attempts to adjust for the fuel window. So not only since they last pitted, but adjusting for the fuel window, the tire window, etc. So that's what my flags does. It adjusts healthy car count, track position, and strategy, and adjusts the lap times for that. And Christopher Bell still going to be a top flags contender. Not number one like he's in green flag speed, but he'll be a top flags contender, I'm sure, when I run that maybe tomorrow or Thursday, just depending on when I get to it. Got NFL season in swing, so NASCAR stuff keeps getting pushed back a little bit, but we'll get there.
Yeah. But that's going to wrap up Wine About It. Presented by Luvabella Winery. Make sure you check them out. Always, there's a link in the description of the video, link in the podcast description, luvabella.com. You can get these wines shipped directly to your door. Great sponsor. They're also, I believe they're supporting Stephen Malazzi again soon. A little something coming up there. So we're on to Indy Road Course, though. I hate this race so much, but I love it so much. And if you're a listener to this show for a while, going back to last season, you'll know why. Because one big reason was Nick and I talked about this on the podcast last year. I don't believe Nick bet it, but I did. Bubba Wallace top Toyota last year at 100-1. Hit last year because both Indy Road Course races so far have been shit shows. And it's almost like betting on road course races, or not road course, but super speedway races at this point. You root for calamity and you take long shots. Another one last year, Todd Gilliland top 10.
I had Todd Gilliland and Harrison Burton top fives, I think it was, both at 30. I think one was 30-1 and one was 31-1. And I had them top fives or something like that, and they both hit, so it was crazy.
And after that Bubba Wallace 100-1 top Toyota hit last year, I said I don't think we're ever going to get this again, and we haven't. It's been 10-1, 15-1. All of a sudden, Caesars lays 100-1 Bubba Wallace top Toyota line this week for Indy Road Course.
Yep.
And of course, Nick and I hit this. Of course, we hit this.
Not missing
immediately
out
went down. Immediately went down to 60-1. But I don't know where Caesars is at with it. Other books are at 15 or 10. Yeah.
Caesars went 100, 60, 25, 15. I think now it's at 12.
Gosh.
I wouldn't bet it that low. I was like,
no.
I'd stop around 40, 50 because even though it's going to be a shit show, there's one extra Toyota than last year, and they're changing the restart line, which should make it a little more calm. But you never know if curbs are going to explode again or whatever. And plus, we're a couple races away from the playoffs. The intensity always picks up around these races.
Yeah. But like we said, there's quite a few drivers in this field that I've never heard of before. There's another 2311 Racing entry in here. SVG's coming back for Trackhouse. But going back to, like you said, Todd Gilliland, Harrison Burton with top fives. I know. Did you bet Todd Gilliland? He's at 9-1 top 10. Did you bet Todd Gilliland for a top 10 this week yet?
Not yet. I have not yet. I'm waiting on FanDuel, man. I'm waiting on FanDuel for their top 10s. Because I'm greedy. But I will bet Todd Gilliland 9-1 if that's all we get. 100% will. But same with Ryan Preece. I'll bet him 10-1 if that's the longest we get. But I'm trying to be greedy and wait for a 12 or something on Ryan Preece. Both Jim Sonis and I have value on Ryan Preece at 10-1 top 10. I bet, who the hell did I bet? Oh, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 12-1 top 10. Bet that right away at Caesars because, I mean, when you're getting a driver who, for the whole last year, every single road course race has finished 19th or better other than Chicago. He has a 12.0 average finish at Indy Road Course, and he has a top 10 finish this year at a road course. You can't not bet him. Plus, I'm showing value at 12-1. Jim was showing value at 12-1 on Ricky Stenhouse Jr., so had to bet it. But, just like you said, our strategy is find some long shot bets. And for me, I'm finding a bunch of long shot chaos bets. And then I don't think I might bet a single bet that's shorter odds this week. So I bet a Chris Bell group bet, but that was plus 420 in a 4-car group, which is very long when you consider if every car was 25% to win that group, 3-1 would be. So plus 420 is a very nice number there. Right, so I'm just betting these like longer shot chaos type bets, but also ones I think they're just value in general anyway, which you are kind of banking on chaos. But like Bell, for example, he could be faster than Truex, Reddick, and Elliott. Sure, why not? This was Christopher Bell had, and I'm so mad at myself because I did want to bet Bell's outright 16-1, and I was like, let me run my model and confirm that I like him at 16-1. By the time my model ran, he was 12-1 at Superbook. I'm like, and I have like plus 1188 fair or something, so it's not enough value there to go bet it. But Chris Bell last year, remember how terrible Toyota was? The single best performance by speed on a road course last year was Christopher Bell at Indy Road Course. He was hanging out in the top 5 all day. I think at one point he was close to leading or challenging for the lead. Maybe did lead actually on speed and stuff. Slight speed strategy deal, but he was always in the top 3 or 5 until like his tire popped or something and he hit the wall with a handful of laps to go. Ended up finishing in the teens, I think. But the single best Toyota performance last year on speed was Christopher Bell at Indy Road Course. I know he won at the Roval, but remember, he was like a 8th, 12th place car in that race, and he took tires at the end there on a track that was chewing up tires. So that was what happened there with Christopher Bell to get that win at the Roval last year. Everybody else stayed out. He grabbed 4 tires and was able to pass the whole field. So, it's one of those things where I love Christopher Bell this week, but the outright price at 12 just isn't quite there. So, but yeah, my plan is to take long shots, wait till on-track activity happens, practice qualifying, and then maybe I'll try to grab a couple favorites that I think I like. So that's my like non-chaos hedge, is to wait till after practice and qualifying and find the favorites.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you mentioned I did bet Gilliland already at 9-1 for top 10. he
I'm being
was
greedy and
legitimately
waiting.
he was legitimately fast here last year. I think he qualified ninth.
And he
qualified
finished 10th at Coda earlier this year.
Yeah, so he has 2 top 10s and 8 road course starts. Mm-hmm. I'm not really counting the street course because that was just a race. Another top 10 bet that kind of caught my eye was Buescher, plus 100, so even money for a top 10.
That seems
Reason being,
too long.
7 straight top 10s at road courses.
Yep.
Including a 10th here at Indy Road Course last year, 4th at Sonoma earlier this year, 8th at Coda, despite starting 32nd in that race. And hell, like it's not out of this world to think he could challenge for a win and go 3 in a row this week at Indy Road Course. And that's kind of, his area of odds, just looking at like Superbook here, is kind of what caught my eye. McDowell is definitely going to be in we need to win mode. I don't know if I like that betting on him, but at 25-1, it's intriguing to me. Chris Buescher 20-1, intriguing to me. AJ Allmendinger 20-1, intriguing to me. Am I making any of these bets? No. I have not made any of these bets. But these all seem like they're overvaluing guys like Truex and Reddick a little too much this week and giving us some of these longer odds. I couldn't blame anybody for taking a Buescher, taking a McDowell, taking an Allmendinger this week for an outright already before we go into practice, because after practice and qualifying, those guys are probably going to get shorter.
Yes,
because they're going to have speed. There's probably nothing crazy that's going to go on in practice and qualifying. Which you mentioned, I forgot that they moved the start line or the restart line, which is obviously going to have an effect on this race. And I want to say this before I forgot. What are the chances we see a calm Indy Road Course race? And who does that favor more? Does that you'd have to say that favors Reddick more.
Yeah, definitely favors Reddick more, or Truex. Those two guys.
And if you remember, Sonoma was another race this year that Truex was just stupid faster than everybody.
Well, and that's my plan is if it's calm, I'm just going to look at who I think is the best after practice and qualifying, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm not taking any long shot outrights, but I'm taking long shot top 10s, long shot top manufacturer, long shot whatever group bets, right? Betting on plus 275 for the race to finish in overtime, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then after a practice and qualifying, I'll look at matchups. I'll look at, these kinds of things that I think will be a little more predictable if the race is predictable. Gotcha.
See, that's kind of where I'm at right now, though, is with someone like Reddick. Because the more I think about it, the more maybe, this is a calm race, is current 6-1 number, we're not going to get that after practice and qualifying. If he goes out there, he's the fastest car in practice, he's the fastest car in qualifying, he's going down, he's in that 3-1 territory like Truex was for a little bit.
I agree with that. I guess the thing is, would I rather get 6-1 and be uncertain of him being fast, or get 4-1 and be certain that he's fast?
That's true. That's a good point. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Like I said, I have no intention of making any outright bets this week. Just not in there.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think, there's probably certain drivers you could feel more confident about that with. Truex wasn't quite there at Coda, and he was really good at Sonoma. He was really good at the street course, but he wasn't quite there at Coda. So I feel, but then Reddick fell off at Sonoma, fell off at the street course. So it's tough to say, right? Like, we just don't know.
That's true.
I don't know. I do know Toyota has probably had the best or second best car at every single road/street course race this year, even including Chicago, because I think Truex had the best or second best car other than SVG, and Christopher Bell led the most laps in that Chicago street course race.
SVG is a good guy to bring up. By the way, Buescher did finish top 10 at Chicago street course, so make that whatever I said, 8 in a row or 9 in a row. SVG is in this race. He's getting bet. He has to be getting a lot of money bet on him because he went from 20 to 12 at Superbook. In a Trackhouse racing car, do you think how do we handicap? I guess this is more than just an SVG question. How do we handicap all these guys? All these random guys? Because, looking at the entry list, so we got Jensen Button in the 15, which he's raced before, but he's also in that 15. We have Rockefeller in the 42, Andy Lally in the 51, and then we got Kobayashi. Is that how you pronounce?
Yep.
In the 67 for 2311.
Yep.
We got SVG in the Trackhouse car. Who's in the 33 for Childress?
Brody Kostecki comes
who
from
the hell is that?
Supercars, same series as Van Gisbergen.
So, and that's what's
yeah.
interesting to me is, one, how the hell do we handicap these? But two, these books are putting them at better odds than like proven Cup Series guys that are really good at road courses. Like, has this Brody guy ever even gotten in a stock car before?
Well, I mean, he's in supercars, which are very similar to these cars. So yeah.
Yeah, but like, has he how many laps has he ever raced a NASCAR sanctioned event?
No, but neither had SVG. So
right, but that was also a street course. I feel like people were investing too much into this street course win by SVG.
But this is a street road course too. I mean, it's the same deal.
Is it? Is this the same as a street course? I feel like it's different. Maybe it's just my brain.
It is and it isn't. I mean, there's still a technique to taking these corners and stuff like that, right? But no, technically not, right? So IndyCar breaks them into three different things. And I mean, if you look at Kyle Kirkwood, he's been much better at the street courses than the road courses. A lot of that, though, has to do with open wheel, dampers, the way you can, corner at ridiculously high speeds on these street courses. But the Cup cars aren't quite, I would say, as affected by that as much. You still need mechanical grip, don't get me wrong. But I think the similarity between a road and a street course in a Cup style car is much closer than an Indy car where, smooth tracks, rough tracks matter a lot more because of the crazy level of downforce and the bumping that you get going through corners at such crazy high speeds. Whereas, a Cup car taking the exact same corner isn't going to be even close to an IndyCar speed, just because those cars are much less aerodynamic. So I think there's a little less difference than, something like IndyCar.
That wouldn't throw enough. As far as the playoff picture, one of those guys winning isn't going to do anything. But as far as, what we saw at Indy or at Chicago Street Course was SVG was super fast, and then obviously he went on to win the race. Do we take that same approach if these other guys and SVG this weekend are once again, top 5 speed in practice, or do we have to?
Depends who, right? Like, I think the supercar guys are probably at more of an advantage than the F1 guys, like Kobayashi or Jensen Button, just because this is much closer to a supercar than a Formula One open wheel car, right? Similar with IndyCar, right? Like, I wouldn't say an IndyCar guy coming in would be super adept at this necessarily either. So it's tough to say. But if certain drivers come in and crush, then yeah, right? If Kostecki and Van Gisbergen just absolutely light it up once again, then we got to start looking at where these guys come from, what cars are they racing, etc. Because a 2311 car, let's be real, is probably a lot better than a legacy motorsports car coming in, right? So if SVG gets into the 42 instead of Rockefeller, right? Also, we're not saying SVG is suddenly going to be a race-winning contender, but in a Trackhouse car, absolutely.
Yeah, and that Kostecki guy in the 33 for RCR, if you remember back to Sonoma, the only guy that was even close to Truex on speed was Kyle Busch in an RCR car. And that's another aspect this weekend of the unknown. One, is this race going to be a shit show? Two, we've only had 2 races on road courses this year. So we know who was good in this car last year. We know who was good here at was the first race, Coda. But Chicago Street Course was, dealt with the rain, dealt with the delay, dealt with all that. I feel like it's not very useful this weekend. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. So there's just so many factors here that it's hard. It's super hard to handicap this fucking thing.
It is, and that's why I want no part in trying to pick who's going to be the favorite. I don't feel confident about any bet. My model's also not showing value on any single driver, or if it is, it's very thin value. I think I'm showing thin value on Ty Gibbs at like 50-1 or something. But then, here's the other thing. I know we don't have. I think Ty Gibbs is no longer 50 at the longest book. I think at the Bet Rivers books he was 50, the Canby books, but now I think he's 40. But still showing value at 40, but I'm not betting it. But my point is, right? Like so. We don't even know how stage stuff is going to play out. I know we're not throwing stage cautions anymore, but we run these road course races. Traditionally, road course races have been run backward, right? You say, okay, I've got an 80-lap race, 30-lap fuel window. So what's 80 minus 30? 50. So on a pit, lap 50. What's 50 minus 30? 20. So on a pit on lap 20. So if the stage ended at lap 25, Ty Gibbs isn't going to want to pit at lap 20. He's going to want to wait until he gets to the end of the stage at 25 to grab those stage points because he's in a playoff race. And so if a caution comes out at lap 21, 22, 23, 24, or before he gets to 25 end, some part of maybe 20 or 25, he's screwed because then he has to come in and pit while everybody else has already made their pit, or not everybody, but a bunch of people have made their pit. And because you don't lose lap here, he pits and cycles to the back. So there is still risk in the strategy of going for stage points. Whether it's stage 1 or stage 2, at some point there's going to be a risk in that strategy which reduces your win chances because it is not the optimal strategy. You're not doing the count backward from the end of the race strategy. So it does end up becoming riskier for a guy like Ty Gibbs to have upside when he is points racing. Mm-hmm. Even without the yellow, even without the stage caution, just if a random caution happens to happen in those 5 laps, that like I said, that reduces Ty Gibbs' win probability, and that's something we can't really account for in a statistical model.
Right. It's kind of like just in your head, if you're playing DFS, if you're betting this week, you have to understand guys like Bubba Wallace, guys like Ty Gibbs are going to be going for the points.
Yeah.
Someone like Michael McDowell, though, if he has a race-winning car, I don't see how they don't go for the win. I don't see how they would points race this race.
Right.
Chase Elliott is not going to points race this race. Alex Bowman's not going to points race this race.
That's
Austin
the one
Cindric's
thing Chase Elliott has going for him is he's not points racing this race.
His strategy is win. That's it. Now, how can Gustafson screw that up? We'll find out. But, most of these guys' beds are already made. And they know what their strategy is, and there's no... The only one that I think is on the fence is Michael McDowell. And I think that's going to come down to how good his car is in practice and qualifying. If they think they have a race-winning car... Suarez, too. Yeah. I don't like to give Suarez any credit. But yeah, those two guys, I think, because I think they can legitimately win if they have the car.
Yes,
I don't think I'm putting Ty Gibbs into that category, and I'm definitely not putting Bubba Wallace into that category. So
no, I'm definitely not putting. It was interesting because somebody asked me Bubba Wallace 300-1, and I'm like, absolutely not. But 100-1 top Toyota, yes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because you can get top Toyota without even coming close to winning. As we saw last year, he finished 5th, and it was very lucky 5th, but he got top Toyota, right? So it's just one of those funny things. But I agree with you. Bubba Wallace is not going to win, so he's a points-focused day. He can still get top Toyota by being points-focused. But probably agree with you on Gibbs, although, he's really good at these road courses. He is a hell of a good road course racer, as I remember from Xfinity Series. This should be a good track for him. But he's so on the bubble, right, that he's 100% points racing. Michael McDowell and Ty Gibbs has not been a front runner at the road courses this year. Outside of Sonoma, he was up there a little bit, but then started to fall off. So it's tough to say with Ty Gibbs. I don't think it's like super likely that he's racing for the win. But Michael McDowell, and I could definitely see it because he's always got good cars at these. And then Daniel Suarez. If Daniel Suarez is not in that goddamn chassis that's won a bunch of these races or whatever, 2 of the Trackhouse wins at road courses, I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
Could they be saving
if you're trying
it
to get
for
Suarez in? You got to put him in that car.
I could see them saving it for. Did you say one of those 2 races?
Yeah.
Okay. I could see them saving it for Watkins Glen just because of how Indy has been.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Save it for the little safer race.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were talking about it doesn't take a lot for a driver to be top Toyota. Bubba Wallace was also the top Toyota in the first Indy Road Course race. I don't know if you remember that, but he finished 13th.
Yep.
So yeah, does not take a lot to be top Toyota. And he was, or like you said, he was top Toyota at Indy last year, and then top Toyota at the Chicago Street Course this year. Ty Gibbs at 9th.
Yeah.
In 9th.
Exactly.
So does not take a lot.
And that was with Truex having, what seemed like a dominant Toyota, or Christopher Bell at worst having the second most dominant Toyota, right? He won stage 1 and stage 2. Although I still think Truex had a better car. There was just a lot of weird strategy stuff. But, it was, even when, a couple drivers have very dominant cars. Tyler Reddick was in that race as well, right? They all had issues, and Bubba Wallace was top Toyota. These things happen. He's not a race-winning contender, but if other guys have issues, that'll happen more than 1 in 100 times, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's all we're looking for.
History has shown that it has.
The whole field's not going to have issues 1 in 300 times for him to win. I mean, unless literally the curb explodes and kills every car in front of him, but that's a very rare exception to the rule.
Right.
It's one of those things where I wouldn't take him 301 win, but I sure as hell would take him 101 top Toyota, especially given 1/3 of 300 is 100, but Toyota doesn't make up 1/3 of the field. They make up, 1/5 of the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I was looking at like top Fords. Obviously I like Todd Gilliland to get a top 10 this week at 9-1. He's top Ford. I think I saw at 40-1. I'm not betting that. There's way too many Fords, and there's good Ford. Like, Toyotas have Truex and Reddick. They're really good at road courses. Hamlin's good. He's not great. Ty Gibbs is pretty good, but I don't think you can fully trust Ty Gibbs. And you got Bubba Wallace, and then the 6th one would be, the Kobayashi guy, Kobayashi.
Yep.
So that's just the difference in, when we're looking at a guy like Bubba Wallace to get top Toyota versus a Todd Gilliland to get top Ford. Just give me the 9-1 top 10 for Gilliland. He doesn't have to beat, Cindric, Blaney, Harvick,
Logano, Keselowski. Yeah. Even like Briscoe at these can be a little dangerous and things like that.
Yeah. Harrison Burton, who had a top 5 here last year.
Yep.
But yeah, that's I don't think there's much more to talk about with Indy Road Course. Do you?
I didn't realize Chase had drifted in 9 at Superbook. You know what else that tells me? Right, Superbook is... We talk about Circa being the, air quote, sharpest, but so is Westgate Superbook. Just, there wasn't Superbook available in, like, a gazillion states last year. Not that there is a gazillion this year, but there's much more handful this year than last year. Superbook is the premium sports book in the world, right, in terms of, like, Westgate Superbook, and they are the ones that have the sharpest action. Circa also very sharp at setting lines. So if Westgate is taking Chase Elliott 9-1 and everybody else is at 7.5, Westgate wants to keep getting money on Chase Elliott when the rest of the industry's shorter, because everybody else will see 9, they'll start pouring money on Chase Elliott. That's going to be good for Superbook when Chase Elliott doesn't win. Now, obviously, yes, there's a chance Elliott wins, but I would bet the chances he has a race-winning car is very slim. As far as, like, top 3 or 4 on speed. I would bet it's much less than a 9-1 car, especially a 7-1 car.
I'm browsing odds right now. Speaking of 7-1, Bet365 has SVG down to 7-1, along with Elliott.
I knew SVG would take a ton of money. I was surprised he opened around 18 or 20. I know he was at 20 at one point. I probably should have bet it, but there's so much uncertainty with a guy like SVG or Brody Kostecki or any of these guys. It's not something where I want to get into betting them based off of a 1 race sample size in Cup or a 0 race sample size in Cup and things they did in supercars or this car or that car. It's just too much uncertainty. The error bars on these are so wide that I don't really want to do it. So just staying away from those. If they beat me, they beat me. That's great. But I'm also not betting a bunch of other guys to win this race either. So they're not actually really beating me in that case, right? Like I'm not like, let's look at this. Kostecki, Chevy. SVG, Chevy. Rockefeller, Chevy, right? Like all these guys are Chevys. So if I'm betting top Toyota, top Ford markets, those guys aren't affecting me. Just like if I'm not betting outrights, those guys aren't affecting me. Maybe top 10s, they're affecting you a little bit, but you have a lot more wiggle room on a top 10 than to win. So, and that's the other thing. We're talking about 39 cars in this race, not 36. And those extra 2 or 3 cars are good ones. So it reduces the win probability of everybody. So if you liked Chase Elliott 8-1 overall, let's say, like maybe you thought 775 is fair on Chase Elliott at a typical 36 car race. Well, 8-1 is not going to be value in a 39 car race where those other 3 cars are all really good with good drivers, right? So that's the other part of the value proposition here is you have more cars to contend with, more potentially good cars to contend with. Again, I'm not totally certain because I don't know how good Kamui Kobayashi is going to be. We know Jenson Button is going to be better than the typical Ware car because he's Jenson Button A, and B, they're getting Stewart Haas support when he's in the car. So, there's already just extra win probability that's taken up by adding more cars and adding better drivers into the field.
This would really throw a wrench in right here. I haven't looked at the weather forecast, but what if we get rain all day Saturday, and they can't practice or qualify?
Yeah,
that would just add to the calamity. I think. I'm trying to pull it up right now.
That though, I love it.
So right now there's a 44% chance of scattered thunderstorms at Indy on Saturday. Yeah, that could be another thing though. If it's not super rainy and then they go out on rain tires in practice, because they'll do that here, right?
Say that again.
They'll use rain tires for practice and qualifying if they have to, right?
Yeah.
Or do they only race on it? I forget. I always forget about that shit.
Yeah.
I feel like they have all these rules for reasons they're not going to use rain tires, as opposed to just putting the damn things on the cars and going.
IndyCar practice in the rain, they don't give a shit as long as it's not like spray or standing water, like puddles.
You there? You frozen up on my screen.
Practice in the rain. They did this past weekend for Nashville. The second practice was rain, and Kyle Kirkwood made 3 laps in practice too because they weren't forecasting rain for Sunday, so there's no point. But there was a very small chance of a pop-up shower in Nashville the race day, so you may as well go run a few laps and just see what your car is doing. Make sure there's no technical difficulties with your car, shake it down kind of thing, especially because they knew they weren't going to have morning warm-up. But NASCAR is not like that, right? It's like I feel like they find any excuse, like you said, to not run in the rain these practice or qualifyings. But if you got the rain tires, do it. Like, that's the whole point of them. Just do it.
I agree. Who's your pick to win?
Kyle Kirkwood. Oh, no, that's for the IndyCar race. No, I don't think Kyle Kirkwood's won the IndyCar race. I will say, if it does rain, last year, Kyle Kirkwood in that AJ Foyt car, the shitbox that it is, was running second for a good chunk of that race. On strategy, don't get me wrong, but he was at least holding that second, third spot there before everything went to hell. So, we'll see. Plus, now he's in an actual good car. But I don't think this is a Kyle Kirkwood race. I'm waiting so bad for these IndyCar odds to drop. But, Jordan, thank you for joining me on Kyle Kirkwood this past weekend. I knew this was his race. I knew it.
That was such such a nail biter at the end.
It was.
Because I finally turned it on, and then I remember I DM'd you. I'm like, does he have this thing wrapped up? And you're like, as long as it stays green, and then all of a sudden there's a wreck. I'm like, fuck.
Yep.
Thought I Jordan jinxed it again.
But he had 2 brilliant restarts. He got out over a second and a half gap on both those late restarts, which sealed the deal at that point. So, brilliant race by my guy, Kyle Kirkwood. He won 2 of the 5 street course races this year. That would translate to plus 150 as fair odds. So if you bet him anything longer than plus 150, you beat the market, right? And we were getting 10, 12, 20 on the street course races for him this year. And, you know, we lost money betting Kyle Kirkwood last year, but that was all part of the plan. We knew we were getting insanely long numbers, and he was in a shit box, but we knew we got to keep betting him until the wins come. You want to bet him before the wins come, not after. You don't want to chicken out after you've lost 2 or 3 of those, because then you miss out when he does win, and then the odds are too short, right? We're not going to see Kyle Kirkwood at a street course race at 10-1 anymore. If he opens 10-1 for St. Petersburg, you auto bet that for next year for the first street course race of the year. You just instantly bet that if he opens double digits. So it's one of those things. Yes, we can lose 15 times in a row, but if we're betting 50-1, it doesn't matter if you lose 15 times in a row if you hit the 16th time. And that's what I think. You know, in the Discord that Action Network has. I always get comments on weeks we go over. It's like, brutal, that was terrible, blah, blah. I'm like, our win expectation was to hit 1 or 2 bets, and we hit 0. We came in 1 or 2 bets below expectation because we're betting 8-1, 10-1, 15-1, right? Unless there's a week where I'm heavy on matchups and stuff. But then the weeks we hit 2 or 3, 8 or 10 or 15-1s makes up for the next month, right? So it's really funny because and I see the usernames, know who you are. I know when people only comment on the bad weeks and not the good ones. And then I also see the other side where there are people who comment on both the good and bad, and I appreciate that, right? Like, that's a good thing. But there are people who pop in the Discord just to say brutal.
People, I tell you. Pick to win Indy Road Course.
I have no idea. I should spin a wheel, right? Like, I didn't even think to make a 39-car wheel. Well, it shouldn't be 39 cars. All right, I'm going to randomize. Literally, I'm going to randomize the entry list here on Excel and pick the first one that isn't stupid. So, just give me 1 second. It's not quite. It's not quite, Daytona stuff, but all right. Copy, paste, and let me get the sort function out. Filter. Largest probability to win. Christopher Bell, no way!
No.
Oh my God, I'm shitting you. I'm not shitting you. Oh my God, I could not believe that. Austin Dillon second, Todd Gilliland third, Chase Briscoe fourth, Ross Chastain fifth. I cannot believe Christopher Bell is number 1. Christopher Bell is my pick to win. I'm so awesome. Happy about that. That is unbelievable.
God, what are the chances?
I cannot believe that. What are the odds? Oh my gosh.
That's funny. You've now picked Bell in 4 of the last 9 races. 4 of your last 9 picks have been Christopher Bell.
Shit. Well, this one was not on purpose.
But you did pick him at Bristol Dirt this year, and that's your first win of the season. So
there you go.
I figured you were going to go Reddick, so I was going to go Allmendinger, but I can't.
Oh my God, Reddick is literally last in this.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm not joking.
I'm going Reddick.
So the bottom is stacked. So it's Reddick last, Byron second to last, Kyle Busch third to last, Alex Bowman fourth to last, Harvick fifth to last, Hamlin sixth to last, Stenhouse seventh to last, Truex eighth to last, Elliott ninth to last.
Wow.
Bill Walsh 10th to last. So that's insane. This is a stacked field, dude. This is a stacked field.
I'm rooting for chaos, but at the same time, I'm kind of hoping it's a calm race and we just see a good road course race with solid strategy and the fastest guys, getting through there, because we know Indy Road Course could use it. But
yeah, no, I just did Rand in Excel. I just did Rand for all the drivers, sorted largest, smallest. Christopher Bell with a .966 on a 0 to 1 scale, but Austin Dillon .965, .001 was the difference.
Wow, that's awesome that you got Bell when you've been thinking
That's
about
so
it.
funny. Yeah, I'm pretty high on him this week. Led the most laps at Chicago Street Course. Ran really well. I mean, he had a great car. I don't think he had a race-winning car. Obviously could have won the race, but he was a top 3, 4, 5 car maybe. And best Toyota race last year of all the road courses was Bell at this track last year.
All right. That's going to wrap this one up. Short episode for us. Hour 20. But that's how Indy Road Course race. Hey, we actually gave some bets today that we liked, that we've actually bet already. And FanDuel, I just checked. FanDuel still hasn't dropped their top 10 line, so hopefully they do soon.
I was looking at
usually,
Circa, too. If you noticed me on my phone, I was like, come on, Circa.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything else anywhere. Usually Betfred has some decent lines. I'm still waiting on them to fully
Fred.
drop. So, yeah. But yeah.
Who is Fred?
Good luck to everybody this weekend. Hopefully we see another long shot winner. We've been getting quite a few lately. It's nice. It's good for the sport when these long shots win and we see some huge tickets for bettors. So,
Yep.
Hopefully that continues this weekend. And yeah, we have a good race. Verizon 200 at Indy Road Course before we go to Watkins Glen and then Daytona to wrap up the regular season. So, thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you next week for Watkins Glen. See ya.